The rounds were coming in hot, 7.62 millimeter tracers slicing through the African night like angry hornets. Captain Esme Wright pressed herself flat against the corrugated metal wall of the communications hut while the world exploded around her. 30 meters away, 3 Delta Force operators were pinned behind a burned-out Land Cruiser, their return fire doing nothing to slow the assault. The enemy had night vision, coordinated movement, and a plan that was working perfectly. She wasn't supposed to be armed. Her role was intelligence analysis, sitting in air-conditioned rooms, studying satellite imagery and signal intercepts, providing targeting packages for the shooters who did the real work. But the compact HK-416 slung across her chest told a different story, one the men bleeding out in the dirt were about to learn. Because before Esme Wright became the Analyst, she was something else entirely, something the enemy was about to discover the hard way. Before we reveal what happened when she picked up that rifle, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and hit subscribe. Because what came next turned a routine intelligence mission into a masterclass in precision violence that would redefine how everyone in that compound thought about desk jobs. The intelligence officer. The C-130 touches down at Forward Operating Base Sentinel just after midnight. Red dust billows in the prop wash, coating everything in a fine layer of grit that tastes like copper and regret. Esme Wright steps off the ramp carrying a single deployment bag and a hard case that draws curious glances from the loadmasters. She's 32, but looks younger in the harsh floodlights of the airfield. Average height, athletic build, brown hair pulled back in a tight bun that meets regulations without trying to impress anyone. The kind of person you'd pass in a grocery store without a second glance, which is exactly the point. Captain Wright, a staff sergeant approaches, clipboard in hand. I'm here to take you to the TOC. The Tactical Operations Center sits at the heart of the base, concrete walls, reinforced roof, enough satellite dishes to contact Mars. Inside, screens glow with real-time feeds from drones circling somewhere over the Horn of Africa. Major Sean Carver runs the intelligence shop here, and he greets Esme with the enthusiasm of someone who's just been handed more work. Captain Wright, your reputation precedes you. His handshake is perfunctory. I understand you're here to help us with the Khartoum network. That's the mission, sir. Most of what we need is pattern of life analysis, movement tracking, communications mapping, standard stuff. He gestures toward a workstation in the corner. You'll coordinate with our tactical teams, but you won't be going outside the wire. We keep our intelligence assets inside where they're useful. Esme nods, expression neutral. Understood, sir. What Major Carver doesn't know, what almost nobody knows, is that Esme Wright spent the previous 4 years doing something very different from analyzing satellite photos. She was part of a joint CIA-JSOC task force that didn't officially exist, working in places that weren't officially visited, eliminating threats that were never officially confirmed. She had been one of their best long-range specialists, patient, analytical, lethal. But that program ended 6 months ago when congressional oversight got too close and everyone involved was quietly reassigned to conventional roles. Esme got sent back to intelligence work, which is what her personnel file said she did anyway. The hard case she carried off the plane contains a custom rifle system that she's not supposed to have. But old habits die hard, and there are some tools you don't leave behind just because someone changes your job description. The compound Forward Operating Base Sentinel isn't much to look at. Concrete barriers, guard towers, prefab buildings baking under a sun that shows no mercy. The local contract security forces patrol the perimeter with AK-47s and expressions that suggest they'd rather be anywhere else. Esme settles into her new routine with the ease of someone who's done this before. Morning briefings at 0600, intelligence updates at noon and 1800, real-time monitoring of drone feeds throughout the day. She maps enemy movement patterns, identifies key terrain, builds targeting folders for the Delta operators who run missions out of the base. The Delta team is led by Captain Marcus Hale, a rangy Texan with 15 years of experience and the kind of confidence that comes from winning more fights than you've lost. His team treats Esme with professional courtesy, but nothing more. She's support staff, not an operator. Useful for planning, but not someone they expect to see outside the wire. Your analysis on the Eastern safe house was solid, Hale tells her after a successful raid. Good call on the secondary exit route. Just reading the patterns, sir. Well, keep reading them. We're tracking a high-value target who's been moving weapons through this sector. Could use your eyes on his network. The target is Abu Khatim, a logistics coordinator who moves small arms and explosives from Sudan into neighboring countries where various militant groups pay cash for anything that goes boom. He's not a battlefield commander, but he's the supply chain keeping several conflicts burning hot. Esme spends 3 weeks building his pattern of life. She tracks his vehicles, maps his safe houses, identifies his associates. The work is methodical, patient, the kind of thing that requires attention to detail and the ability to spot anomalies in routine. What she notices is that Abu Khatim is getting ready to move. Increased communications, vehicles being staged at multiple locations, changes in security procedures. He knows someone is hunting him, and he's preparing to disappear. We need to hit him now, she tells Major Carver during an evening briefing. He's running. Based on what? Pattern changes across all his networks. He's closing down safe houses, rotating security, moving in irregular patterns. These are pre-operational indicators of a major position change. Carver studies her analysis, then nods. I'll pass it up the chain. If they approve, Hale's team will move tomorrow night. The compromise. The approval comes through at 1400 hours the next day. Go, no-go decision point is 1800. Wheels up at 2000 if everything stays green. Esme watches the drone feeds throughout the afternoon, tracking Abu Khatim's vehicles as they move between locations. He's at a compound on the outskirts of a small town. Older buildings, thick walls, limited sight lines. Not ideal for an assault, but better than trying to hit him while he's mobile. At 17:30, something changes. A new vehicle arrives at the compound. 5 men get out, all carrying weapons, all moving with the kind of coordination that suggests professional training. They sweep the perimeter, check the roof lines, position themselves at key choke points. Major, we have a problem. Esme keys her radio. New security element just arrived at the target location. These guys aren't local militia. Carver appears at her workstation studying the feed. Foreign fighters? Worse. Look at their movement patterns. That's professional military training. Someone warned Abu Khatim we were coming. The implications hang in the air like smoke. They have a leak. Someone inside the intelligence chain is feeding information to the enemy. Abort the mission, Carver says flatly. I'm not sending Hale's team into a prepared defense. But before he can make the call, the radio crackles with Hale's voice. TOC, this is Assault 6. We are wheels up, en route to target. ETA 20 minutes. They had launched early. Standard procedure when you think someone might be tipping off the target. Move before the leak can spread. Esme watches the feed as the helicopters cross the desert, knowing with cold certainty that this mission just went from surgical strike to potential disaster. The ambush. The assault team fast ropes into the compound at exactly 2017 hours. Textbook insertion. 4 operators on the ground in under 30 seconds, weapons up, moving toward the main building with practiced efficiency. That's when the world catches fire. The first RPG streaks out of a second-story window, missing the lead element by inches and detonating against the compound wall. The blast wave knocks 2 operators flat. Before they can recover, automatic weapons fire erupts from multiple positions simultaneously. Contact! Contact! Hale's voice cuts through the radio. We're in a kill zone. Esme watches the drone feed with growing horror as the ambush unfolds. The enemy had known exactly where the team would insert, had prepared fighting positions to cover every approach, had turned the entire compound into a carefully orchestrated trap. The Delta operators fight back with professional violence, but they're outnumbered and pinned in an open courtyard with limited cover. One man goes down with a leg wound. Another takes shrapnel across his vest, the impact spinning him like a top. They need immediate support, Esme says, already moving toward the door. Captain, stand fast. Major Carver's voice stops her. Your intelligence. Let the QRF handle this. The quick reaction force is already spinning up, another team of operators loading into helicopters, preparing to fly into the same ambush that's chewing up the assault element. Sir, they don't have time for the QRF to... That's an order, Captain. Esme looks at the screen. Hale's team is being systematically destroyed. The enemy fighters are using coordinated fire and movement, suppressing the Americans while maneuvering to better positions. In another 3 minutes, it won't matter what support arrives because everyone will already be dead. She makes a decision that will either save lives or end her career. Understood, sir. Then she walks out of the TOC and heads directly toward the small armory where her deployment case is secured. The Wolf. The guard at the armory checkpoint knows better than to question a captain moving with purpose. Esme signs out her case, carries it to a quiet corner behind the motor pool, and opens it with steady hands. The rifle inside is a custom-built bolt-action precision system chambered in .300 Winchester Magnum. It's not standard military issue. The modifications were done by a gunsmith who works exclusively for organizations that don't admit they exist. The scope is German-made, the suppressor is titanium, and every component has been selected for one purpose: putting rounds exactly where they need to go at distances that make most shooters uncomfortable. She assembles the weapon with movements so practiced they feel automatic. Stock to receiver, bolt carrier group, scope mounting. Her hands know the routine so well she could do it in complete darkness. The guard towers on the northern perimeter offer the highest elevation and the best sightlines toward the compromised compound. Esme climbs the ladder with her rifle slung across her back, ignoring the curious glance from the sentry on duty. Captain? We weren't told about any radio check, she interrupts smoothly. Communications wants eyes-on verification of tower positions. It's a thin excuse, but delivered with enough confidence that the young private nods and steps aside. From the tower's observation platform, Esme has an unobstructed view toward the target area. It's roughly 2 kilometers away, well within the weapon's effective range, though the distance will require careful calculation of wind, temperature, and ballistic drop. She settles into a shooting position, checks the radio to monitor the tactical frequency, and begins her calculations. The math, through the scope, the compound resolves into brutal clarity. She can see muzzle flashes from enemy positions, the desperate movements of Hale's team trying to find cover that doesn't exist, the bodies of men who've already stopped moving. The wind is inconsistent, gusting from the east, then dropping to almost nothing, then picking up again from a slightly different angle. Heat waves rising from the sun-baked ground create mirage effects that distort distances and make precision, aiming an exercise in reading invisible currents. Esme watches the wind patterns, timing the gusts, calculating holds that account for both vertical and horizontal deflection. At this distance, even a slight miscalculation means the difference between a hit and a miss that leaves good men dead. Her first target presents itself as a fighter moving between positions on the compound's eastern wall. He's carrying an RPG reloader, moving to resupply the gunner who's been dropping rockets into Hale's position. She settles the crosshairs, compensating for distance and wind. Her breathing slows to a measured rhythm. She finds the natural pause between heartbeats and applies pressure to the trigger. The rifle speaks once. The suppressor reduces the sound to a sharp crack that's easily missed in the noise of the distant firefight. 2 seconds later, the time it takes for the bullet to cross 2 kilometers, the fighter with the RPG reloads drops without ceremony. The heavy ammunition clatters to the ground, suddenly useless. On the radio, confusion. Did you see that? Target just went down. Did someone... Unknown, Hale's voice cuts through. Whatever it was, we'll take it. Keep moving. Esme is already tracking to her next target. An enemy machine gunner is pinning down 2 Delta operators behind a thin wall that won't hold much longer. He's firing disciplined bursts, controlling his sector with professional competence. She places the crosshairs on his upper chest, accounts for the slight crosswind that's just picked up, and sends another round downrange. The machine gunner's weapon falls silent. The 2 pinned operators immediately exploit the gap, moving to better cover. Now the enemy realizes something is wrong. Fighters begin looking around, trying to identify where the unseen threat is coming from. They know they're being engaged, but from 2 kilometers away, with a suppressed weapon in failing light, there's no obvious source. Esme continues her work with clinical precision, each target selected based on threat priority, each shot carefully calculated, each trigger press followed by patient observation to assess effects before moving to the next problem. An enemy officer trying to coordinate the defense from a rooftop position. Down. A sniper setting up in a window with clear lines on the American positions. Down. A fighter preparing to throw a grenade into the courtyard where wounded Americans are being treated. Down. One by one, the enemy's advantages dissolve under accurate fire they can't see and can't counter. The shift. The change in the tactical situation is immediate and unmistakable. What had been a one-sided slaughter transforms into a winnable fight as the enemy's key personnel simply cease to exist. Whatever friendly element is engaging, keep it up. Hale's voice carries relief mixed with confusion. We are pushing to the primary building. The Delta operators move with renewed aggression, exploiting gaps that Esme creates by removing the fighters defending those gaps. It's a deadly dance. She watches, assesses, shoots, watches the operators move, finds the next threat, repeats. But the enemy isn't stupid. They begin to adapt, pulling back from exposed positions, using covered routes to reposition, trying to make themselves harder targets. One fighter proves particularly troublesome. He's directing others from inside the main building, only occasionally visible through windows, clearly understanding that staying exposed means death from an unknown source. Esme watches patiently, waiting for the pattern to repeat. He appears at the eastern window, issues orders, disappears. 30 seconds later, he's at the northern window, checking something, disappearing again. She times his movements, predicting when he'll next appear and where. When the eastern window darkens with his silhouette, her crosshairs are already waiting. The shot is threaded through a window opening barely wider than a man's shoulders, across 2 kilometers of air that's cooling as the sun drops, through heat shimmer that makes precise aiming feel like shooting at ghosts. The fighter drops inside the building. She doesn't see him fall, but she knows the shot was good. That particular kind of certainty is what separates professionals from amateurs. On the ground, Hale's team breaches the main building with explosive charges that light up the growing darkness. They clear rooms with brutal efficiency, finding Abu Khatim hiding in a reinforced interior space, along with 3 bodyguards who surrender immediately when they realize their defense has collapsed. Objective secure, Hale reports, requesting immediate exfil. We have 2 urgent surgical, 3 routine. The QRF helicopters that had been circling finally come in, landing in the compound that had been a death trap 15 minutes earlier, but is now secure enough for casualty evacuation. Esme watches through her scope as wounded men are loaded, as Abu Khatim is flex-cuffed and hooded, as the assault team pulls back with their prize and their casualties and their questions about who the hell had just saved their mission. She disassembles her rifle with the same methodical precision she'd used to assemble it, securing each component in the case with movements that speak of long practice. The young private at the tower entrance looks confused when she descends. "Ma'am, was that... Did you..." "Radio check confirmed," Esme says evenly. "Tower positions are solid. Good job maintaining watch." She's halfway back to the talk when Major Carver's voice crackles over her personal radio. "Captain Wright, my office, now." The Debrief Major Carver's office is small and airless, dominated by a desk covered in classified documents and a wall map showing enemy positions in red and friendly forces in blue. He's standing when Esme enters, his expression somewhere between fury and reluctant admiration. "Did you just do what I think you did?" "Sir, I provided fire support to a compromised operation." "You disobeyed a direct order." "I interpreted your guidance about staying useful, sir." "By shooting insurgents from a guard tower with a weapon you're not even supposed to have?" Esme meets his gaze without flinching. "By ensuring our assault team came home alive." Carver is quiet for a long moment, processing this. Outside, they can hear the helicopters returning with the assault team and their precious cargo. Captain Hale is asking questions. So is everyone who monitored that operation. They want to know who provided the support fire that saved their asses. What did you tell them, sir? Nothing yet, because I'm trying to figure out how to explain why my intelligence analyst is apparently also a precision marksman capable of engaging targets at 2 kilometers. That information is need to know, sir. I need to know, Captain, right now. So Esme tells him. Not everything. Some programs stay classified even in private conversations. But enough. The Joint Task Force. The mission parameters that required both intelligence work and direct action capabilities. The training that turned analysts into something more versatile when operations required both skills simultaneously. They needed people who could gather intelligence and act on it immediately, she explains. Traditional models required too many handoffs between collectors and shooters. We eliminated the middleman. How many operations? Classified, sir. How many confirmed? Also classified, sir. Carver sits down heavily, the anger draining out of him. You just saved 7 American lives, probably more, counting what would have happened if that QRF had flown into a hot LZ. But you did it by going outside your current role, using unauthorized equipment and disobeying orders. Yes, sir. There's going to be an investigation, questions about how you had that rifle, why you weren't stopped, whether proper procedures were followed. I understand, sir. But that investigation is going to happen after I finish writing my report about how my intelligence officer provided critical fire support that ensured mission success with minimal friendly casualties. He picks up a pen, then sets it down again. I can't officially condone what you did, Captain, but unofficially, thank you. The recognition. The after-action review happens 2 days later, once the wounded have been stabilized and Abu Khatim has been transferred to a more secure facility for interrogation. Captain Hale and his team gather in the briefing room, still processing what happened during a mission that should have ended with body bags and failure. Major Carver runs the meeting, walking through the timeline, the intelligence preparation, the execution, and the unexpected intervention that changed everything. When he reaches the part about the precision fire support, every eye in the room turns toward Esme, who's sitting quietly in the back row. Captain Wright, Hale says slowly, that was you on Overwatch? Yes, sir. From where? North Perimeter Tower, 2 kilometers out. One of his sergeants, a hardened veteran named Cole, lets out a low whistle. You're telling me you threaded shots through that wind at 2 clicks, with enough accuracy to drop 10 targets in 15 minutes? 11 targets, actually, but who's counting? The room erupts in questions. How long have you been shooting? Where did you train? What unit were you with before this? Are you sure you're actually in intelligence? Esme deflects most of them, but the core truth is impossible to hide. The quiet analyst who'd been building their targeting folders is also someone who can pick up a rifle and fundamentally alter a tactical situation through precision violence. I don't understand why you were sitting in a TOC to begin with, Hale says. Skills like that should be employed, not wasted on PowerPoint briefings. My current assignment is intelligence work, sir. Your current assignment is whatever makes the mission succeed. And after what you did, I'm requesting you for my next operation as dedicated sniper support. Major Carver shakes his head. Captain Wright's primary role remains intelligence analysis, but given recent events, I'm authorizing her to provide precision fire support when tactical situations require additional capabilities, which is military speak for. We're not going to waste a resource this valuable just because her job description says something else. The meeting breaks up with new respect in how the operators treat Esme. She's no longer just the analyst who builds their target folders. She's proven herself in the only currency that matters to door kickers. She'd been there when things went sideways, and she'd kept them alive. The next mission. 3 weeks later, intelligence reports indicate that Abu Khatim's capture has created chaos in the weapons trafficking networks he'd managed. His associates are scrambling to fill the vacuum, which means mistakes, exposed communications, and opportunities for exploitation. One name keeps appearing in the intercepts: Rashid al-Fadl, Abu Khatim's deputy and the person most likely to take over the network. He's smart, cautious, and currently meeting with potential buyers at a remote location near the border. This could be our chance to decapitate the entire network, Major Carver explains during the mission briefing. Hit Rashid and the remaining players simultaneously. Collapse the organization before they can reconsolidate. Captain Hale's team will handle the primary assault on Rashid's location. 2 other teams will hit secondary targets in coordinated strikes. It's an ambitious plan that requires precise timing and perfect intelligence. Captain Wright will provide intelligence support and precision fire overwatch, Carver continues. Her position will give her visibility on the entire target area and the ability to engage threats that complicate the primary assault. This time, nobody questions why the intelligence officer is carrying a rifle. They've seen what happens when Esme Wright has permission to solve problems from 2 kilometers away. The infiltration happens at night, using small vehicles to close within walking distance before proceeding on foot through terrain that's all loose sand and stubborn scrub brush. Esme moves with the assault team, but splits off once they reach the objective area, finding a hide position on elevated ground that gives her clear sightlines to the target compound. Through her night vision scope, the world resolves in shades of green and gray. She can see heat signatures from vehicles, from guard positions, from the building where Rashid is reportedly meeting with his buyers. Overwatch set, she reports. I have eyes on 3 guard positions and multiple vehicles. Looks like more security than intelligence suggested. Copy, Hale responds. We're moving to assault positions now. How many guards? Esme counts carefully, tracking movement patterns. At least 8 exterior, unknown interior. They're alert, rotating positions, checking their sectors. These guys are expecting trouble. Another leak? Or they're just paranoid. Either way, this won't be easy. The assault team moves into position with practiced stealth, but the guards are doing their jobs well. One of them spots something, maybe movement, maybe just shadows that don't look right, and raises the alarm. The firefight starts before Hale's team can breach the compound. Guards open up with automatic weapons, tracers cutting through the darkness, forcing the Americans into cover before they're ready. Contact! We're engaged! Esme is already working. Her first shot drops the guard who spotted them, creating a gap in the enemy's overlapping fields of fire. Her second shot takes down a fighter who's moving to reinforce the eastern wall. The suppressed rifle makes less noise than the ongoing firefight, which means the enemy still doesn't know where she is or how their people keep dropping at critical moments. She settles into a rhythm. Observe, assess threat priority, calculate the shot, execute, observe effects. Each squeeze of the trigger is preceded by careful reading of wind conditions, range estimation, and holdover calculations that have become automatic through thousands of hours of practice. A guard on the roof with an RPG down. A machine gunner setting up in a second-story window down. An enemy officer trying to coordinate the defense from behind a vehicle down. The assault team exploits each gap she creates, pushing closer to the main building where Rashid is trapped with his buyers and diminishing number of bodyguards. Then something goes wrong. The complication. One of Hale's operators, a sergeant named Torres, takes a round through the shoulder and goes down hard. The team medic starts working on him immediately, but they're exposed, pinned by fire from a guard position that Esme can't see from her angle. Overwatch, we need that position suppressed. Hale's voice carries urgency. Torres is hit bad. Esme scans desperately, but the guard is behind solid cover, only occasionally visible for fractions of a second. Not enough time for a careful shot. Not enough exposure to guarantee a hit. I don't have a clean angle, she reports, frustration cutting through professional calm. Then find one, because we can't move him while we're taking fire. Esme makes a decision that violates every principle of good sniper employment. She breaks cover, moving from her hide position toward a rocky outcrop that should give her a better angle on the problem guard. The movement is risky. It exposes her to potential counterfire, breaks her concealment, and takes time that wounded men don't have. But Torres is bleeding out and the team can't help him while they're suppressed. She reaches the new position, settles into a hasty shooting stance that's far from ideal, and finds the guard through her scope. He's leaning out to fire another burst, just for a moment, just enough. The shot is rushed, compensated by instinct rather than careful calculation. The bullet impacts slightly lower than intended, but achieves the necessary effect. The guard drops, his weapon clattering away. "Target down! Move Torres!" The team medic and another operator drag Torres behind better cover, working frantically to stop the bleeding while the firefight continues around them. Esme returns to Overwatch, continuing to pick apart the enemy's defense structure, one careful shot at a time. But she's aware that she's taken a risk, made herself more vulnerable, potentially compromised her position. Professional snipers don't do that. They maintain their position, control their environment, operate from patience rather than urgency. But sometimes the textbook answer isn't the right answer. Sometimes you break rules to keep people alive. The assault team breaches the compound's main building with explosive charges that light up the night. They clear rooms with methodical violence, finding Rashid exactly where intelligence said he'd be, in a reinforced meeting room with his buyers and his remaining bodyguards. The subsequent detention is textbook. Flex cuffs, hoods, systematic collection of everyone in the room. Within 10 minutes, they have Rashid and 4 other high-value targets in custody. Objective secure, Hale reports, preparing for exfil. Esme provides overwatch as the team extracts with their prisoners and their wounded, watching for threats until the helicopters arrive and everyone is safely airborne. Only then does she police her brass, secure her weapon, and begin the long walk back to the vehicles. The aftermath: Torres survives his wounds, though he'll spend 6 months in physical therapy learning to use his shoulder again. The mission is classified as a complete success, multiple high-value targets captured, weapons network disrupted, minimal friendly casualties. Esme's role in that success is acknowledged in classified reports that most people will never see. But among the small community of operators at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, her reputation solidifies. She's no longer just an intelligence officer. She's proven to be something more versatile, someone who can build the target folder, plan the operation, and then pick up a rifle to ensure the plan succeeds when reality intervenes. Captain Hale stops by her workstation one evening, setting down a cup of coffee that's probably been sitting too long but carries the thought that matters. "Torres wanted me to tell you thanks. Said you saved his life by taking that hasty shot. Just doing what needed doing." That shot was damn near impossible from that angle, under stress with a wounded man's life depending on it. He pauses, choosing words carefully. "You broke position to make it happen. That's not standard sniper protocol." "No, sir, it's not. But it was the right call. Sometimes the book answer isn't the answer that keeps people alive." He drinks his terrible coffee, making a face. "I've worked with a lot of shooters, Captain. Some are technically perfect. They can thread needles at 1,000 meters, recite ballistic tables from memory, make shots that belong in training videos. But when situations get complicated, when the plan falls apart and people are bleeding, technical perfection doesn't matter as much as judgment. What matters is the mission, sir. What matters is bringing everyone home. The mission is just how we keep score." He stands, preparing to leave. "You're welcome on my operations any time, Captain. Intelligence support, precision fire, hell, I'd probably take you as point man if that's what the situation required." After he leaves, Esme returns to her analysis work. Pattern of life studies, communication intercepts, terrain analysis, the quiet work that happens between missions, building the foundation that makes loud work possible. But her rifle case sits nearby now, no longer hidden in an armory, but kept in her workspace where she can access it quickly. Because everyone understands that in this line of work, roles are fluid, and the person who looks like support staff might be the one who keeps you alive when things go sideways. The professional. 6 months later, Esme Wright receives orders transferring her to a new assignment, not back to a conventional intelligence role, but to a specialized unit that operates in the spaces between traditional military organization. The unit doesn't have a name most people would recognize. It doesn't appear on organizational charts. The people who work there are drawn from multiple services and intelligence agencies, selected for versatility rather than narrow specialization. They need people who can analyze intelligence and act on it, who can build the plan and execute it, who can sit in a talk analyzing drone feeds and then pick up a rifle when the operation requires precision fire support. They need people like Esme Wright. Her last day at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, she stands on the same guard tower where she'd first engaged targets at 2 kilometers. The view hasn't changed, desert stretching to distant horizons, heat shimmer making everything dance, the particular quality of light that belongs to this part of the world and nowhere else. Captain Hale finds her there, offering a handshake that carries genuine respect. Whatever you're going to do next, I hope it's putting your skills to good use. I expect it will be, sir. Any advice for the analysts who will try to fill your shoes? Esme considers this, thinking about the past 6 months, the operations that succeeded and the ones that nearly didn't, the lessons learned in spaces between intelligence work and direct action. Tell them that the best intelligence comes from understanding the ground truth, not just what's in reports, but what's really happening when bullets start flying. Tell them that sometimes you have to get your hands dirty to truly understand what the operators need. And if they're not shooters, then tell them to become shooters, because in this business, versatility keeps you alive and makes you valuable. The more tools you have, the more problems you can solve. She boards the C-130 that afternoon, carrying the same deployment bag and hard case she'd arrived with, but she's not the same person who stepped off that plane 6 months ago. That person had been uncertain about her role, caught between who she'd been and who she was supposed to be. The person leaving is certain. She's an intelligence professional who carries a rifle, an analyst who can pick up that rifle and fundamentally change tactical situations when circumstances require. She's someone who proved that the most dangerous person in any operation might be the one everyone underestimated. The aircraft climbs into afternoon sky, leaving Forward Operating Base Sentinel behind. But the lessons learned there, about judgment, versatility, and the value of being more than your job description, those travel with her toward whatever comes next. Because in the end, Esme Wright isn't defined by what she's called. She's defined by what she does when it matters most. And when it matters most, she's exactly who you want on your side. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to hear more powerful stories of brave women in uniform.